إن الحمد لله نحمده سبحانه ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فأوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل، فقد أمرنا الله تعالى بذلك في كتابه الكريم، فقال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال تعالى: يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. ثم أما بعد, if you'll allow me, I would like to start today with a story from one of the righteous people, Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah. I want to start with this, so that when I tell you the ayat, and when I tell you the hadith, inshallah ta'ala, you'll get the context and you'll understand a little bit better. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah, he was once speaking to somebody, and he asked him how old he was. So the man said that I'm 60 years old. And then Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad said to him, contemplating his age, he said, do you realize that for the last 60 years, every single day, every single moment, you've been traveling closer to Allah, and you've almost reached your destination? 60 years, 60-year journey, and you're almost there. It's almost, the journey's about to end, and the journey's hereafter. So the man said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Now that made Al-Fudayl angry. He said, do you know what you're saying when you say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un? Now just a side point, we take it for granted when we make that statement. You hear somebody die, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But who actually really contemplates on that? Let's look at what Al-Fudayl said. He said, do you understand what you're saying? If you say that to Allah you belong, that you are the property of Allah, and that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you're going to be going back to Him, then understand that you are going to be stopped on the day of judgment. You're going to be stopped. And if you're going to be stopped, that means that in the dunya, you're actually responsible for everything that you're doing now. Because there would be no point to being stopped on the day of judgment if it was not to hold you accountable for something. You're being held accountable for what you do now. And if you're going to be stopped, that means you're going to be questioned. Question about what you ask. What are the questions going to be? About every moment that you did in your life. That Allah counted it and they forgot it. Every week that's passed by and you've forgotten, but it's been reported. So you're going to be asked about what has transpired. So if you know you're going to be asked, then prepare the answers from now. Isn't that an amazing exam? That you know the answers in advance. The teacher gives you, says, these are the questions that I'm going to be asking on the exam. Prepare for it from now. And usually they're hard questions, right? That the teacher expects you to go and research and study, but these are easy questions. So Fudayl he said this to the person, and the person said, so then what should I do? He said, from here forward, if he's age 60, he said, from here forward, do good in your life. And this is from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do good in your life from here forward. Allah will not only forgive these remaining years, but forgive the past years. But if a person doesn't do good, that's when they get that warning, if they don't change, that they'll be held accountable for the remaining years and the years that come before. Dear brothers and sisters, in the past, when people would go for Hajj, right? And a little bit today as well, but in the past when they would go for Hajj, they're traveling long journeys in the desert. And so when they would leave their homes, they have to prepare all their provisions from the beginning of the journey. Because there's no rest stops in the desert. You can't just stop in the desert and start digging a hole. Or you're not just going to find animals that restaurants you can stop, or Tim Hortons, you can get a cup of coffee on the way in the desert. It doesn't work like that. You have to prepare all your provisions from the beginning, and they have to be enough to take you to your destination, the final destination. It can't be like, oh, I forgot to pack that. You're in the middle of the desert and somebody tells you, oh, I didn't get enough water bottles with us. Sorry about that. Well, then you're dead. I didn't bring enough food, then you're dead. Now, here's the interesting thing about the hereafter, is that there's no water stations in the hereafter to fill up on good deeds. There's no water stations, there's no rest stops, there's nothing you can do. All the provisions that you need to make it in the hereafter, from when the sun comes down to the questioning, to the resurrection, to the crossing of the Sirat, to everything there, you've only got one suitcase of deeds. Only one. Now let's bring it to today. Let's open up our suitcases for today and let's reflect. I know we forget, as human beings we forget, but let's look at it from the time we woke up this morning, or whatever time, may Allah forgive us, that we woke up till now. What's in our suitcase? What do we have today? Is it good deeds and racing to do good deeds? Is it some Quran? Is it coming for Jum'ah Salah? It includes good deeds, and Allah multiplies them 10 times. And it includes bad deeds, of course. And they're only counted as one when they come quickly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and protect us. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Kun fi dunya. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu narrates this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw 'abir sabil. Be in this dunya, act in this dunya as if you are a stranger, or just somebody who's passing through. And Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu would share this hadith with the students, and he wanted to explain what does it mean to live as a traveler. And I'll give you my explanation. First, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said, إِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءَ وَإِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحَ. He said, if you find yourself in the daytime, don't expect or don't have the hopes of being alive by the evening. And if you're in your evening, don't have the hope and expectation of being alive in the morning. And I'm putting here this comment that what he's saying is that usually people have hope. What he means by hope is they'll say, I will repent later. I will do good deeds later. When the sun comes up in the morning, then I'll do this and I'll do that. But right now I don't have time. Basically he's saying, don't procrastinate. Don't leave it till tomorrow. Do what you can do today. Now I had this experience, and I'm sure you've been in an experience, where you're transitioning between one location to the next. Maybe you're going from one city to the next, or one country to another country, or maybe you're a student, a foreign student who's coming to study at the university. Interestingly, I was just reflecting. I moved to Ottawa 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, I did the Jum'ah Khutbah at Carleton University. And at Carleton University, I'm sure many of the people here were not there. Agreed? Many of you weren't at that Jum'ah Khutbah 7 years ago. And I'm assuming as well that 7 years from now, Allah will bless Ottawa with another Khatib in Carleton University. And when that Khatib comes to speak here, you will also not be here. Another group of people. Hopefully many more people, inshallah ta'ala. But another group will be here. And that is life, just in a big scale. I know a lot of times you're told, hey, you know what, you might die tonight. And you're like, you got home and you didn't die. So then you go to another speech and the person says, hey, you know what, you might die tonight, so you better donate now. And then you go home and you're like, well, I didn't die. After you hear that so many times, you start thinking to yourself that I'm not going to die. Chances are I'm not going to die, but one day you're going to be wrong. Right? So I don't like to make that type of analogy. I'd rather make the analogy here at the university. That you're feeling right now, some of you are already in your final year and you're going to be moving on. And you already have this mentality of a traveler. So what are you doing differently? A traveler does this. Sometimes there's only a few months left in the school year and you have to travel, you're going back to home country, you're moving to another area for a job. And you look at a bar of soap at the supermarket, and then you say, will I be around long enough to buy this? Or to use this? So then you say, let me get something a little within my life focused on the hereafter. I also want to add another point to this. I was reflecting upon this and preparing the khutbah. And I said, why is it that everybody realizes that when you set goals, it's one of the most powerful things to actually achieving the goals? And I thought to myself, when you set a goal, you're putting a picture in your mind in the future that affects how you act today, right? When you set a goal, you're putting a picture of where you want to be in the future that affects how you act today. So now I ask you this question, how many of us, the hereafter is that picture that they have? And Jannah for those who drinking from the hands of the Prophet from Al-Kawthar. What is if that's the picture that you have in the future, it will no doubt affect your life today. Now, in Adam and Hawa, my parents and your parents, when they were expelled from paradise, Allah forgave them, and they came down to this earth. Your parents, my parents, what do you think was on their mind? Right? These are your parents. What was on the mind of your parents when they came to earth? Did they say, hey, you know what, let's get a great house over here by the beach, and you know what, we can enjoy ourselves, hey, this is a great, what an amazing place? Or, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong that you can do that, but in their mind, they're crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go back to their real home. To the real home. Now, Ali radiallahu ta'ala, he said that it's very strange how somebody finds that the dunya is walking away from the person. Each year, each month, you're not getting younger, you get older and older, and the dunya walks away. Today you're able to wear jeans and tight shirts, and tomorrow you're not going to be able to wear jeans and tight shirts, and life just moves on. But we concern ourselves with that which is moving on. As Ali radiallahu anhu says, but the dunya keeps coming closer and closer and closer. And who knows when we're going to die? The dunya keeps coming closer and closer and closer, yet we're heedless of it. It's like we try closing our eyes, even though as a human being you're always walking in that direction the hereafter. We close our eyes to it. And then Ali radiallahu anhu said both of these destinations have their children, have the people that focus on. There's the, live your life to the fullest, and it's all about the dunya, and, do this, do that. There's those types of people. And then there's the type of people that they're focused on the hereafter. And you can probably think of somebody like this and somebody like that. So Ali radiallahu anhu said, be like those who focus on the hereafter and not like those who focus on the dunya. Another person, Muhammad ibn Wasa, was once asked, common question you get every day, right? So how are you doing? What's the answer to that? So how are you doing? Not bad. Alhamdulillah. Right? How are you doing? So Muhammad ibn Wasa, rahimahullah, he responded, he said, how am I doing? What's your opinion of somebody who understands that in the past day or in the past hour, they've just walked 1 hour closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the journey of the soul. Now I don't have time to explain the different stations in the hereafter, but there's something that's going to happen in this dunya that nobody disagrees with. Many times you hear different opinions and discussions, they're like, اختلف العلماء, the scholars disagree. And I remember being in class when we got to Kitab al-Janaiz, the chapter of funerals, the books of fiqh, and the teacher started off by saying, al-maut la khilafa fi. The death, there's no difference in opinion about it. Right? Maybe people will differ about what happens after, but death itself, every human being agrees, everything on life comes to an end. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about this journey, where Allah says, كَلَّا إِذَا body one shot. It actually leaves the body in stages. So the soul, a person might be alive from their upper body, but their lower body has died. Their chest, their arms may have died. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ التَّرَاقِي. And the taraqi is basically your throat. That's when the soul is in the throat. Now this person, and we're all going to be in that position, if they went to bed the night before, and I always think about this and contemplate, when I hear of the death of somebody, I always wonder what they were thinking about last night. When I was a student overseas in Medina, somebody died in the swimming pool. Right? They drowned, they died, broken neck, and they died in the swimming pool. And I always thought to myself, when people like that, I said, what were they thinking about last night? How was their salah yesterday? How was, the whole situation? Because I am sure if we had reviewed this person's yesterday, it would have been your typical boring, lame day. That's just the way life is. Not knowing how significant that day was to the person. If they only knew. And that's what you're saying when Umar is saying that prepare every day as if tomorrow you're going to die. So that when you do die, and someone reflects on the day they came before that, they'll say, this was a day worth living. And I did it with the hereafter in mind, always preparing my answers for the question. So when somebody's sick, what's the first thing that people do? Immediately they start thinking, let's dial 911. Correct? That's automatic. Let's dial 911, let's call the ambulance, let's call this, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings that up. It's an amazing This ayah says, and it will be said. And Allah knows that what the response will be. When the person's soul reaches their throat, it will be said, وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَى. Who will save this person, or who can do ruqya, or who can heal this person? Now there's a waqf, right? And it's a silent waqf, and it's just in the recitation, right? For those of you studying tajweed and so on, it says, وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَى. There's a med there as well. So beautiful. Now you learn that in tajweed when you reflect on the ayah, what the situation of the ayah is talking about. It's almost as if the person is about to say, who can, and then they pause. And it's almost like the words just come after that because they know that nobody can heal this person. There comes a point where there's no medicine that can help. There's like doctors and all of these things, the people who make the medicine, the people who sell the medicine, the people who administer the medicine, everybody dies. And that's that moment. وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَى. Now I want you, in the next verse, وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ الْفِرَاقُ. And the person feels that now this is the time of their death. وَالْتَفَّتِ السَّاقُ بِالسَّاقِ. And then the knee comes wrapped together, the other knee, i.e. in the janazah. You're wrapped together. إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمَسَاقُ. And then the journey that day will be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How quickly can that journey begin? Some people say, when is the day of judgment? I would respond to that question by saying, how quickly can you die? So your day of judgment is as close as the stopping of a heartbeat. It's that close. Your heartbeat stops and you're dead and the day of judgment begins. Al-Qiyamah al-Sughra leading to Al-Qiyamah al-Kubra. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us gifts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me, and make you, make all of us grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these gifts. Allah gave us a gift of time, gave us a gift of youth, gave us a gift of health, and so on. Now the question is, in order to live like a traveler, what do you have to do with your time? You have to use from your time, and your intention and your goal is that from this time, I'm preparing my suitcase so I have enough provision on the day of judgment for that. They can take you through all the stations. If you have health, what should you do with your health? Again, same concept. You've got to be preparing and put into your mix of the things that you're doing in your daily life, things that are going to build up good deeds, preparing your suitcase for the hereafter. And you have wealth. What are you going to do with your wealth? You're going to use that wealth, of course, taking care of yourself, but in additionally preparing for the hereafter, putting it in that suitcase so that ultimately when you die, you have a full, complete suitcase. When you get, and in conclusion, I'll end here, when you get to that moment, when the soul reaches the throat, and you know you're going to die, and that's that moment, you're probably going to say something. And it's going to be one of two things. You're going to say something, it's going to be one of two things. You're either going to say, I've been waiting a long time for this day, and it's finally arrived, La ilaha illallah, Muhammed Rasulullah, and then you die. Sounds so easy, doesn't it? Or you're going to say, Rabbi irji'un. Oh Allah, send me back. لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ. Oh Allah, send me back so that I can do good deeds that I never used to do. Now, if that's your deathbed, and I know you're thinking 65 or something like that, because that's the average, that's when the Guinness Book of World Records told you that you're going to die, right? What if you had this moment today? What if right now, right after this khutbah, you went outside, and you got on a bus or the train, or whatever you did, you got in your car, and there was a horrific accident, you fell into the water, and pulled you out, you're now in the hospital, and you know you're going to die, and your family's around you, and they're saying, well, who will heal this person? You know it's your last moment. Put yourself in that situation and look back at today, or the past week. Will you be happy with how you spent your past week and your life up until now? Or would you wish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you another chance so that you could go back better? You can answer that for yourself. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا اللهم من أحييت منا فأحي على الإسلام ومن توفيت منا فتوفه على الإيمان ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه على نعمته